Hello, and thanks for tuning in to another episode of The Director's Cut, brought to you by the Directors Guild of America, featuring today's top directors sharing behind-the-scenes stories of their latest films and insights into the craft of directing. The Director's Cut is now available on Spotify, so please take a second to subscribe to our podcast on Spotify, iTunes, or wherever you get your podcasts. This episode takes us behind the scenes of director Brady Corbet's new drama, Vox Lux. The film tells the story of Celeste, a young singer who had a meteoric rise to fame after she survived a violent tragedy as a teenager and captured the nation's attention when she sang at the memorial service. Years later, the now superstar celebrity must deal with the aftermath of a scandalous incident which could derail her career. She seeks to reclaim her place in the entertainment world via an album of sci-fi anthems entitled Vox Lux, and must find a way to come to grips with everything her life has become. In addition to Vox Lux, Mr. Corbet's credits include the feature film The Childhood of a Leader and the short film Protect You and Me. Following a recent screening of the film at the DGA Theater in New York, Mr. Corbet spoke with director John Krokidas about filming Vox Lux. During their conversation, Mr. Corbet discusses the lessons he learned while working with acclaimed directors such as Lars von Trier and Catherine Hardwicke as an actor, creating fiction in an era of post-truth, and his shift away from realism in his directorial approach to the film.
I thought I had seen the most definitive scene of Natalie Portman breaking down in a dressing room in my life, but I was so wrong. I just want to first congratulate you on making a movie that... There are a lot of great movies this year, and I feel like we're in a moment when artists such as yourself are taking a mirror back to our society and trying to say something about where we find ourselves at this really weird time that we're in. There's been a lot of great movies, but no other movie this year has left me completely guessing while watching it and having no idea where the director was taking me. But because of the storyline, the performances, and the strong directorial choices you made, I was ready to just let go and have you take me wherever you took me. And it is so rare that a movie does that. And honestly, that's the best praise that I can give this film. It actually gets even better on a second and third viewing. So, do y'all know a little bit about Brady? Brady started his creative career as an actor. And I first saw him at Film Forum on the screen in a movie called Mysterious Skin. I think you're about 15 then, 14?
Yeah, I was 14. It's funny because this film is playing at the Film Forum. My first film at the Film Forum since then, I mean, something I worked on. And that was exactly 15 years ago.
And since that moment, he's worked with, hold on, I had to write this down. I then saw him in such movies as 13 and Funny Games, Melancholia, Simon Killer, Martha Marcy May Marlene. So, you know, you've worked with such lightweights as Lars von Trier and Michael Haneke and Antonio Campos. But no, seriously, when did you decide, did you know this whole time when you were acting that you were going to be a director? And did you, what did you learn from your experiences with them? Was there anything that you took from those films when you started becoming a director and realizing, yes, that's the way I want to work with actors, or that's the way I want to run a set?
I just realized that people that I respect a lot are you know, very human also. That they also are not always perfectly prepared, because you can be very prepared, and sometimes you're not prepared for the most important problem of the day. I learned that to be brave in your work is not the same thing as being brave personally. I'm quite shy, and I know that the films are not. The films I've made are not shy films. I'm aware, but I care about the medium a lot, and I care about the advancement of the medium a lot, and I care about. I think it's not worth making something unless there's at least some attempt at doing something that is adding to the conversation a little bit. I mean, otherwise, why do you get out of bed? I mean, it's certainly not for this kind of project to make a lot of money. So, or you know, frankly, any. But I just my first AD is here, and he did a great job, and he's laughing because he knows it's true. I didn't make any money. It was a big guffaw. Anyway, so I think that you know, making movies like this in this day and age is very, very complicated. There's literally no one asking for it. I mean, it's true. I mean, if you go into a meeting, they ask you the proverbial they say, so, you know, do you have a genre film you're working on, or do you have like, and it can be any kind of genre, like, well, you know, what do you have for us? And they're like, oh, I don't know, it's everything or it's nothing. I don't know what it is, and that's not there. It's not what anyone wants, because it's not Amazon Prime. It's not delivered to your doorstep as something which is quantifiable and qualifiable. So I understand that we love things very, very neat in this day and age, and sometimes I do too. But I grew up looking at films that were not neat, and which was not to say that they weren't confident and didn't know exactly what they were, but they were not neat. And I think that is an important thing to keep alive. And you know, we lost Nicholas Roeg this year, one of the most important filmmakers that ever lived. And Nicholas Roeg's movies were very messy. But can we really call them that? Because they're some of the most iconic films ever made. You know, were they actually messy? I don't know. They seemed messy because they were very alive, and they were very, they were very alive.
Do you think this film is messy?
I know it's not. No, I mean, this I can say with some certainty that it's not messy. It's a lot of other things. It's sort of like being on a press tour for a film like this across this country, fielding a lot of different reactions to the film, which are all valid. You know, I mean, it's a lot of things, but it's exactly as it was designed to be. So then it's sort of like, well, if it's not a mistake, then especially fuck you for your intent. You know, which I also understand. I felt that.
Did someone literally say "fuck you" at a Q&A?
No. But no one said "fuck you" yet. However, I have, of course, I've been met with befuddlement and puzzled viewers across the globe, which is interesting to me because it seems like everything which is in the film that we should all have a point of reference for. Like, we're all experts on this moment in time that we're living in, and the film is no more obnoxious or difficult than this administration is, but I really feel that way. I think that it's very like the film is really about you know, how can our fictions exist? How can our narratives exist in a moment in time which is post-truth? Because the thing is that melodrama, something that most filmmakers really celebrate, because melodrama people used to not make fun of you for an operatic gesture. But now, people make fun of you for an operatic gesture. And I understand why. I mean, to a certain extent, I feel like it's like cooking. Like our dishes should become more, our cuisine should become more refined, more distilled, more precise, more subtle. I personally don't like things to have too much salt. But there is something to doing things in the way that they were done in the past. And this film is about the digital revolution, but it was photographed on celluloid. And that's important. The form is the content. And I think that interesting contemporary films, you cannot separate the two.
I mean, I thought the fact that your choices were unsubtle were wonderful, because as a director who's often criticized as being unsubtle myself,
Sure.
I feel like we're living in a time, in an era where film is often praised, art house quote unquote film, for being as quiet and as close to reality as possible. Like this neo-realistic as we can get, the more awarded we should do it. So to see somebody stand up and to make really bold bravado choices in the music, in the slow zooms, in putting the end credits at the top of the movie, and all of these choices that you've made, you make us question why you did it. And you don't give us the answers, but I can tell you, you leave all of us after the movie thinking about it for a long time. And after watching it a second time, I could start seeing some of the decision-making processes behind some of those choices. Although I have to admit, I have no idea. Why did you put the closing credits at the top?
Well,
that was one of the reasons I was so glad I got to do this Q&A, just to ask that question.
I think that in general, there's things that we used to do a little bit better, and that was one of them. I think the credits used to be really, really exhilarating, as opposed to something. They were part of the movie. Like, it's not like when you go to a show and you get a playbill, where it's like, who gives a fuck how it looks, because it's not actually a part of the experience of watching the film or the show. In the case of movie, I think that you establish very early on how much you care about your frame, how much you care about your crew, and it takes hundreds. I mean, I know that we're in the Directors Guild here, but a director doesn't make a movie. 100 people do, 150 people do, and so for me, I think it's important to celebrate those people and make them part of the whole experience of watching something. And I also, it's very old-fashioned. And so when you come to see a movie about a pop star and you see something as old-fashioned as that, and we're not reinventing the wheel. I mean, it's a very old-fashioned way of doing things. Its placement is contemporary, like in terms of doing something 10 minutes in. We weren't seeing Preston Sturges doing that. But all the credits up front is a thing of the past. So as soon as you start playing with people's notion or expectations of time and movie time, then they start perceiving it through that sort of a prism. That the whole thing is, yes, it's about right now, but it's about looking towards the past to access the present, to look towards the future. It's all of those things, and I hope personally, as a viewer that is, a little bit. Maybe it's because I have a kid now, and it's like a little bit of a process to go and see a movie. But I'm not that easily engaged. I wouldn't even say impressed. I'm very easily impressed. I'm not easily engaged by anything. I watch something for a few minutes. My daughter needs something. I need to be there for her. I want to watch something that is so wild that it turns me into a bad parent and a bad person. I mean it. I like. Hold on one second, honey. And I don't feel that very much. For the most part, you do this for a little while. You make the thing. You watch things. It's not that fun to watch other people's things, but some people make it exhilarating. And for example, I think that David Lynch's third season of Twin Peaks is a masterpiece, and I think that it's wild and it's alive. It's a thing you have to deal with, and I really enjoyed that. That's the last time I really enjoyed something.
So your first movie, The Childhood of a Leader, which is also great, also deals with a child who is the witness to something absolutely horrible. And then later on in their life, it's a fictional character set in real history, is the cause of something terrifying and horrible.
Sure.
So the two arcs are very similar in the two movies. Did you conceive of them together? Did you, once you started coming up with this one, did you start realizing that it had a relationship with the first, or am I just completely putting this together?
No, you're totally right. I mean, they're related. The films are, this film, I wrote it like a sequel to Childhood. It's very freeing writing a sequel to a movie that nobody saw. Because
$3.99 on iTunes. He won Best Director at Venice. I highly recommend it.
but it's very. After I made that film, and I was I was making a movie in Europe as an American about the early part of the 20th century. And when I finished that, I wanted to make a movie about the 21st century in America. So it was definitely written in response to what I had just come off of. I was curious to work with characters that were less stilted in terms of how the moment in time allowed them to behave, and so this was the opposite end of the spectrum. The film I'm working on now is a film that's set mostly in the 1950s and 60s. So it's in between this and that. But I approached them in the same way. I approached this like a period piece.
And you work with the same DP on both films, right?
Yeah.
How do you decide to cover a scene? I don't think there is one scene in this movie in which you use traditional coverage. And I was just curious, the slow, menacing zooms, the long tracking shots behind the characters that last 10 to 15 minutes. Do you two come up with this and plan this beforehand? Is it something that you guys...
It's in the script. It's usually in the script, and it's...
You script the shots?
Yeah. Like it sort of says, note, and there's a note at the top of the scene that'll say, in one continuous take until otherwise noted, and then it's like, okay, now it's done, and then that's the ambition for that sequence. We had a few things that changed along the way, but not much. The film was shot in 22 days, so we had to be very prepared, and so especially to span a great deal of time in a narrative, with only 22 days of shooting to pull it all off. It's a daunting task, more philosophically than practically. I think. Just to be like, okay, well, now we're 20 years later.
Were there reference movies, or did you have a mood board that you guys created together of images of photographers, or?
Yeah, we put stuff together. There's Philip Lorca de Corche in there. There was a little bit of Nicholas Roeg in there. I recognize the ambulances from Bad Timing, but not too much. I mean, we didn't need too much simply because of the fact that we all have a point of reference, since so much of it is about right now. And then there were a lot of discussions about how absurd is too absurd in terms of the characters, outfits, things like this. Like, well, she's going to look like Bride of Frankenstein. But that's also accurate. I mean, it's certainly not inaccurate. We basically realized when we looked at references that there was no such thing as too far, because it's everything about the pop shows and stuff it's embellished and pretty tacky. It's pleather, not leather,
Speaking of too far, you pushed Natalie Portman further than I think I've seen anyone push her, and I thought the work was marvelous. And I'm just curious, how, coming from acting, how do you work? Like, your casting is also impeccable. How did you work with your actors? Do you do a rehearsal period? Do you talk about characters intellectually beforehand?
But Natalie's so clever that she absorbed everything that we discussed very early on. I was like, the character's like a little bit of a mob wife. And I was like, it's like a character that has embellished her origins. So that when you find her later on, it's like, in part one, she's like a human being, like a haunted human being, but a human being. And then I was like, she's quite introverted. And then the second half of the film, she's totally extroverted and she's playing a part. And so I was like, it should be
the way Madonna takes on accents.
Yeah. I mean, and there's so many examples, and I don't want to mock anyone, because I've also grown up in front of a camera. But sure, it is sort of a shtick, and I understand why people do it, because when you feel a little embarrassed in front of a crowd, you take on airs, and almost everyone does. You become overtly articulate. You articulate too much. You start sounding like you're from another place, and that happens to everybody. And so the idea was not to mock her, but to demonstrate it. That you, when you're living your life in public, that of course it's impossible to be yourself. And because we've spent an hour with this character as herself, we're able to identify it very quickly as this is this artificiality.
It seemed pretty real to me. Reminded me of certain actors I've worked with.
Well, there's a lot of things like we discussed, and we discussed in the writing stage and when we were working the film, like, should there be a moment where you see her see her stripped down? And I was like, well, but we've already seen it. We spent all this time with the character for an hour, and I was like, I think it's more interesting that she doesn't back down. She's like, this is who I am now. This is who I am now. This is how I am now. She has moments where you see that she's emotional, and she's moved or disturbed or whatever. And so she's a human being in that sense. But she's lost herself completely, and so it's a very theatrical decision. But luckily, all of the actors were curious to try and do that. Because neorealism, it's not done very well in this country. I mean, I can't remember the last time I saw like a great neorealist American film. But it exists, and I've seen great neorealist pictures. Although, for whatever reason, we decided to approach this thing in a way where we protest the thing by being the thing. So,
Explain further.
Well, at the end of the film, you're watching the show for a long time, and the idea is that you are, after a while, you go, it's really going on for a long time. And then you're like, is it good? And does it sound? It sounds how a concert sounds. So, and concerts are blown out, and they're, it's hard to discern the hooks and stuff. But you have a lot of feelings while you watch it, whether you're with somebody or you're alone. You're like, this is curious. And then there's a sort of a conclusive statement from the film's narrator, and then there's some more music. And so everything about it is sort of going against what a movie wants to be, which is sort of to be like, the movie moves along at a certain clip, and then all of a sudden you have to sit and watch the thing that you showed up to watch. So everyone comes in to watch a movie about a pop star. They get an hour and 40 minutes of something else, and then they get 13 and a half or 14 minutes of a pop concert. And then they have mixed feelings about that. And that's interesting, I think.
Now, did you plan that structure, or did you find that in the editing room?
It was completely planned.
Okay, I know people must have a lot of questions. I just want to throw out. So my read of the concert, the first time I watched this movie, and after everything we've been through, that being the ending and you giving me 4 pop songs in a row, I was like, oh, the banality of it all. But then you went biblical, And it made me rethink, okay, the entire narrative is her character's decision, whether true or not, to do this pact with the devil. And then I remembered she said when she woke up in the hospital bed, oh my God, I've done the most horrible thing. And that one for the money, two for the show, she did in the music video. And I was like, oh, okay, so this is a fable.
Sure.
But then you went on the faces of the family, the sister and the daughter, enjoying the performance. And I remember she said all she wanted to do was bring joy. And then I realized I was feeling happy. Sure. And that the pop performance that I was criticizing as being banal and empty and everything that's wrong with our culture with a reality show president, I was actually enjoying.
Right.
So, okay, that was my read.
But it's all of the, but it's, but it's, of course, it's all of those things. And I would say that it's those things in movements. Like, so the part of the reason that the show is 13 and a half minutes is that most balletic performances are about that long. And so the idea was to sort of, elevate this thing, which people don't have a great deal of respect for. And I mean, because people love to take down people that are successful. And so it's like, oh, it's ridiculous, and yes, it like grabs the attention of everyone else, but I'm above it. And so the idea was to sort of, analyze that, to be fascinated by it, to enjoy it, to suddenly jump outside of it, and I feel differently about it at different moments when I watch the film. And it was constructed in that way. It's unusual. It is unusual because those things are usually designed to make you feel something. It's supposed to be triumphant, or it's supposed to be tragic. And the fact that we don't have the perspective or the objectivity to speak about the moment in time we're living in yet. So at the end of the film, you see the actress reprising another role, who seems to be, reincarnated as someone else, who is being given another chance at a future. But her future is uncertain. Our future is totally uncertain. I mean, we wake up every day with a new expert informing us that we have maybe 75 or 70 years left on this planet. And we decide, okay, actually, I think I'm going to click on the link that's right beneath that one, so that I don't have to think about that for too long. Because even though I might not be alive then, my relatives, in my case, my child, there's a very good chance that my child will be around in 70 years, and that the things that we are doing right now will affect her.
But can't we save the world and listen to Ariana Grande at the same time?
Yes, and
do we have to make a choice?
No, and actually, but that's the thing, is that I agree with you, and I think that I feel like there are all these people who do not deserve, who didn't, and when I say deserve, I mean they don't deserve to be tied up in such a complicated socio-political landscape. Ariana Grande did not ask to perform at a venue that someone would attack, so that she would have to answer to that and talk about that for the rest of her life and her career.
Did that happen during the production of this?
It did. So I mean, the film was not written in response to that, but I just mean to say that we see this young woman who has been really brave, She really stepped up. I mean, she really handled it like an adult, and I'm very impressed by her. And this character has nothing to do with Ariana Grande. It was written years in advance of what happened. But I do feel like we're in a moment in time where we have celebrities that have decided to become politicians, and we have celebrities that have not asked to take a political stance on anything, but they're being forced to because of ideological mobs, and I think that it's complicated for them, and I think that we should go easy on them, I think that we did not elect them to represent us. They are not our politicians. They are people that we enjoy listening to and
But
watching.
they made a deal with the devil.
She did. But anyhow, I think that these things are endlessly complex. I'm sure that everyone has an opinion about it. Regardless of how anyone feels about this film, which talks about all these themes, I really, really hope that we go out and support the young people who are put in the crossfire, the ideological crossfire of these situations all the time. And I think that we should go a little easier on them. Thanks for coming.
You got to let them ask a question.
Do they? Isn't it time to go? Would somebody like to ask a question on the way out?
Who's got a question? How many minutes do we have left?
I thought
5? Okay.
You know what? I thought that I was seeing a hand. Okay, well, I'll stay. Hey. Well,
did everyone hear that?
Well, you know what? I actually think the answer will. I think the answer will suffice. I think so. Basically, I will quickly talk about what the sister's purpose in the story was. I was asked if it meant one thing or why she's there, but it's not important because that's not why she's there. The thing is that the reason that character exists is because we live in rise and fall stories, like in rise and fall cliches. There's generally a person behind the person, like someone in the shadows that's actually doing all of the work. And almost every single one of these movies or stories flirts with that sort of a scenario. The reason that I have that kind of character in this film was to talk about how that character is no longer important in contemporary narratives for the following reason. We all know that the majority of our popular figures are not responsible for their success. We already know that. And it's something which is, there are exceptions, of course, but if somebody came out tomorrow and said, your favorite artist does not write her or his own songs, nobody would give a fuck. Because, if we live during a period where nobody gives a fuck about the president sleeping with a porn star, or if we live in a moment in time where we don't care if the president committed a crime, if we live in a moment in time where we don't care if artists are responsible for their own artworks, how on earth can we possibly care about a pop artist that lip syncs, of course, at a live show? So it's complicated, because if we live in a moment in time which is post-truth, it means that we are post-narrative, because narrative relies on stakes. And if there are no stakes, you have no drama. And if you have no drama, you have no cinema. And so this film suggests that in a moment that should be a turning point in the story, that it's impossible for that to be a big enough turning point, because nobody gives a fuck. And therefore, what will people care about? Will people care about something penultimate, something fabled, the deal with the devil? No, they won't care about that either, because even that is passé. So the whole film is very complex, because it uses things, it uses melodrama to talk about something that used to work, and it doesn't work anymore. And so, since this is the DGA and it's a group of a lot of storytellers and stuff in the room, what do we do about it? It's very, very complicated, and it's hard, because it's like, I mean, every time you go to work, you don't want to be burdened with that kind of hypothesis, which is all it is. But but what do we do? How do we make people care? And I feel like as a writer, when I sit down and write something, I'm constantly trying to figure out how do I make anyone care right now? And it takes a lot. And it's a little disruptive, and the film functions as in a disruptive way to disrupt your expectations of what you're coming to see or whatever. But not for nothing.
I've been told to wrap it up, so I think the answer to your question is we keep telling these stories.
Well, I think that I should just keep talking
You could.
for the last 45 seconds, so I don't have to answer another question. John, thank you so much for doing this.
Okay, thank you.
It was very kind of you.
And no, to all of us, though, the answer to your question, we just have to keep committing to telling the stories that reveal the truth and show who we are. And those are the ones that take 5 years to get made, but we got to stick with them. And I think everyone in this room is with me in that these stories do matter. And thank you for making one that does.
Go have a Negroni. Have a good night. Thank you very much.
Thanks for listening to another DGA Q&A. If you'd like to hear more, you can find past episodes of The Director's Cut wherever you listen to podcasts. We'll have more for you in the coming weeks, including Q&As from directors Adam McKay and Peter Hedges, so be sure to subscribe so you don't miss an episode. If you're enjoying our podcast, please take a moment to rate and review us on iTunes. We'd love to hear your feedback, and you can help fellow cinephiles find the show. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time. This podcast is produced by the Directors Guild of America. Music is by Dan Wally.